Quick, think of any famous musician, dead or alive, who's been famous for at least 20 years. Whether you're thinking of Tupac Shakur, Amy Winehouse, Freddie Mercury, or someone else, chances are there's already a biopic about them. Celebrity biopics have quickly become one of the most prominent and profitable movie genres in the world, and as of 2026, there's no sign of them slowing down anytime soon. And it's not hard to see why. Studios love celebrity biopics for the same reason they love sequels. Audiences already know the brand. You don't need to explain who Michael Jackson or Elvis Presley are. The marketing is already built in. While musicians most commonly receive celebrity biopics, actors, athletes, and other public figures often get them too, including the likes of Marilyn Monroe and Muhammad Ali. But celebrity biopics are different from something like Oppenheimer or Schindler's List. Those films are typically about the impact their subjects had on history. Celebrity biopics are usually about fame, legacy, and understanding the person behind the public persona. In this video, my goal is to analyze what qualities make for great celebrity biopics and what makes for generic, forgettable ones. But before I continue, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. One of the weird things about celebrity biopics, especially ones about musicians, is that they've essentially become a genre of their own. They typically follow the same exact structure. The humble beginnings, the rise to fame, the struggle at the top, the personal downfall, and the eventual triumph, with lots of live performances and recording sessions sprinkled throughout. This structure was already so overdone by 2007 that they parodied the biopic genre with Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. Nevertheless, just over a decade after this film's release, perhaps the most infamously sanitized musician biopic of all time was made. I am of course talking about Bohemian Rhapsody, a film that follows every genre cliché to a T. To be clear, simply following a familiar structure doesn't automatically make a movie bad. Straight Outta Compton is a biopic about NWA that also feels very familiar, but ultimately is a much better movie than something like Bohemian Rhapsody. However, the structure does inherently hold the film back to an extent. When you have a dozen movies that all have similar stories and progress in near identical ways, they begin to lose their identity. Think of how MCU films are no longer as popular as they once were. Part of the reason is because the film stopped feeling exciting, but rather repetitive. The same is happening with biopics. 2024's Bob Marley and Amy Winehouse biopics came and went without leaving any impact. To be honest, even I haven't seen them yet, because I just know they have nothing unique to offer. Now you may be thinking, what alternative is there to the tried and true celebrity biopic formula? There are only so many ways to go about telling someone's entire life story in a cinematic format, right? Well, what if I told you you don't need to capture someone's entire life on screen in order to tell their story? In fact, I'd argue the best biopics tend to zero in on a specific moment or period of the subject's life. Let's take a look at one of my favorite celebrity biopics from recent years, The Apprentice. Granted, Donald Trump isn't exactly your typical celebrity, so in order to tell his story, you need to get a bit creative. And that's exactly what they did. This film is basically Donald Trump's supervillain origin story, and an incredibly well-made one at that. Sebastian Stan disappears into the role and delivers a cold performance that simultaneously humanizes Trump and captures his evil essence. I love that the film focuses on a 13-year time period, has a clear narrative arc, and doesn't try cramming in Trump's entire life story. We see a glimpse of his life that gives us a fundamental understanding of him as a person. After all, isn't that the ultimate goal of a celebrity biopic? To understand the person behind the glitz and glamour. This can be achieved by setting a film over the course of decades, or perhaps just a couple hours. Look at Blue Moon, the Lorenz Hart biopic that takes place over the course of an evening. The entire film basically takes place in real time, and follows Hart as he has deep, revealing conversations with everyone around him. Despite only covering less than a couple hours of Hart's life, we get a great understanding of who he was, what his struggles were, and the impact he left on the world. But there's more than one way to capture an entire life within a couple hours. Blue Moon uses conversation and confrontation, whereas something like Lost Days uses mood, silence, and isolation. While not technically a Kurt Cobain biopic, the film is heavily inspired by the final hours of Cobain's life. It's a low-budget film that doesn't feature any big musical performances or grand presentation. Instead, it's a meditative film that puts you in the mind of a notorious rock musician suffering from loneliness and addiction. It's a film that is in no way concerned with profiting off of Cobain's name, but borrowing elements of his life to tell an emotionally powerful story. To clarify, not all celebrity biopics need to reinvent the wheel in order to be great. What's important is that the film approaches its subject in a way that feels true to them. Freddie Mercury was too eccentric and unorthodox for a film so cookie-cutter like Bohemian Rhapsody. Likewise, Michael Jackson was too complicated for a film as simple as Michael. But what if I told you Elvis is a better version of both those films? For all its flaws, one thing you can't accuse Elvis of is a lack of style. The film is directed by Baz Luhrmann, and he directs it with uncompromising style and energy. Elvis is somewhat similarly structured to your typical musician biopic, but where it differs is in its execution. There are many things you can criticize the film for, but being bland is not one of them. I feel similarly about Blonde, the Marilyn Monroe biopic. In this case, it's a fictionalized reimagining of the icon's life that on paper hits many of the same beats as most biopics, but in execution feels nothing like them. It's dark and hyper-stylized, sometimes to a fault, but nevertheless, it stands as an artistically daring glimpse into the life of a Hollywood legend. For the record, I much prefer something like Straight Outta Compton over Blonde, but I would also argue that whereas Straight Outta Compton plays things a bit too safe, Blonde actually experiments with its subject in a way that, at the very least, sparks conversation. And ultimately, conversation is what keeps movies alive. The issue with the most recent celebrity biopic, Michael, is that the film is so artificial to the point where there's almost nothing to say about it. It's the cinematic equivalent to boiled chicken. A narrative so generic, you can almost use the exact same script for another celebrity biopic. It sucks all the life out of what was a complex human being, turning him into nothing but a symbol. It achieves the opposite of what it's supposed to. Instead of giving us a better understanding of the person behind the limelight, what we get is an advertisement to stream his music on Spotify. Compare Michael to The Apprentice, a film with actual artistic value that has something to say. A film with an actual message and themes explored through exciting filmmaking. This may sound like I'm stating the obvious, but a good celebrity biopic needs to function on its own as a film. Not just a montage of them doing the things they're famous for, strung together by a weak narrative. Because audiences already know the public persona. They know the greatest hits, the headlines, and the iconic moments. What they're paying to see is the person underneath it all. If all your movie has to offer is a Wikipedia summary and some costumes, then congratulations. You just made 2 hours of expensive nothing. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.